It Chapter 2 picks up 27 years after the events of It Chapter 1, and we pick up again with the Losers Club now all grown up. They all return to Derry to fight Pennywise and kill this thing once and for all. Now, me loving the first It film, I was really excited for this film, which is weird to be this excited for a horror film, but I was really looking forward to it. And I walked out of this film disappointed. I mean, there's good things in it, don't get me wrong. I like all the cast is pretty much pitch perfect. The characters still feel like the characters from the first film, which is probably the biggest praise that I can give this film, to be honest. Bill still feels like Bill. James McAvoy did a great job. Jessica Chastain as Beverly. Beverly still felt like Beverly. Eddie, they pretty much went into the future and got the same actor who played Eddie in the first one, just grown up. That's how good they did with casting Eddie. Bill Hader as Richie, probably the best actor in the film. He completely embodied Richie. He still completely felt like Richie with the Richie-isms and the wisecracks and the jokes and the banter with him and Eddie. The characters, the cast, it was all well done. Big props to the casting director for this film because they did an incredible job casting all the losers. And the film does have one or two effective moments, both creepy moments with Pennywise doing Pennywise things, but also some really effective emotional moments, especially towards the end, which I won't spoil. But a couple of moments actually kind of gave me the feels a little bit, and the representation of friendship in this film was actually captured really well. But unfortunately for me, It Chapter 2 just didn't have that same delirious entertainment value of It Chapter 1 for me. It Chapter 1, there were so many scenes where Pennywise is doing things with the losers, and it's so intense and riveting and entertaining in that way where it just like kind of gets you a little bit giddy, if that makes sense. This film never did that for me. And part of that is because of every time Pennywise does something, he pretty much most of the time takes up the form of some CGI monster or CGI mummy or CGI zombie or something. And it's just not scary. Like that scene in the trailer with the old woman and Beverly in the apartment. You know, when the old woman charges towards Beverly, she's this big, like, 10-foot tall, really weird, bizarre-looking CGI creature, and it just deflated all of the intensity of the situation for me. And it's like that most of the time Pennywise does something. There are a couple of times where it is Bill Skarsgård in Pennywise makeup as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. But yeah, I'm just disappointed that we didn't get enough of Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise the Clown, and just more of him doing CGI monster stuff. And plus, most of the Pennywise scenes in the first half of the film take place in these flashbacks to the younger losers from the first film. You remember that part in the first film where they kind of argue and they go their separate ways for part of the summer? The flashbacks take place in that gap. So we see that the losers were still getting tormented by Pennywise during that part of the summer that we didn't see in Chapter 1. And we go to the younger losers, and some of them, well, pretty much all of them, are de-aged digitally. And with Finn Wolfhard especially, it is very noticeable because that guy has grown and deepened since It Chapter 1, and it just looks and sounds really, really bizarre. And also with the flashbacks, there were so many of them in the first half. Like, they go back and to the younger losers because the adult losers are trying to find tokens of their past and stuff. And I was sat there and I was thinking to myself, okay, are we just watching It Chapter 1, the extended version right now? Because I feel like we're not spending nearly enough time with the adult losers. But that's just the first half. The second half is completely dominated by the adult losers, so it goes away for the second half. But still, I felt like they over-relied a little bit too much on the flashbacks and the CGI, CGI for the entire film, but the flashbacks for the first half of the film as well. The film's runtime is something that people have been complaining about as well. 2 hours and 50 minutes. I personally didn't feel the runtime too much. It kind of went by more or less the same as the first one to me. It felt like 2:20 roundabout there. But it does feel a little bit uneven in the pacing, especially in the first half where it cuts between all the characters going down memory lane and finding the tokens, and there just wasn't really a lot of intensity in that first half. I found it to be a little bit so-so in terms of entertainment. And I wouldn't say the film overall was boring. I was never bored by it. I just wasn't entertained by it all that much either. And then you get to the ending, and I'm not going to spoil the ending, don't worry, but in terms of how the plot resolves itself, to me it was quite underwhelming. And I don't care if it's what was in the book or the original miniseries, because I haven't watched the original miniseries, I haven't read the original book. There's just somebody who's watching this film and it finally gets to the big ending, and I was like, oh, that's how they're resolving it? really? That? It just felt kind of poor. The actual ending was actually quite good, and the way the film leaves off with the last 10 minutes or so, it makes me want to give the film a few extra points because of emotion, which again I won't spoil context of emotion. But yeah, it's just overall I was pretty disappointed with It Chapter 2. It's not a bad film, it's not terrible or anything like that, it's just because I love the first one so much, I was really excited for this one, but I found it underwhelming because, again, the CGI, they overuse the CGI with Pennywise. Pennywise is barely Bill Skarsgård Pennywise in the film. It was uneven with the pacing again. The flashbacks were overused. The de-age stuff looked distracting. And yeah, just the overall entertainment value of Chapter 1 was more or less completely lost here for me. There is some entertainment in the film, absolutely. And again, the film does have good things. The cast was great. The characters still feel like the characters. Some of the emotion they go for does hit. But overall, I just found It Chapter 2 underwhelming and kind of meh. Which is disappointing considering it was one of my most anticipated films for the rest of this year. So I'm going to give It Chapter 2 a 2.5 out of 5.